So today, as you know by the title, we are going to be looking at Rebel Witch by Kellyanne Maddox. And I am just so excited. I've been waiting for this one for so long and I have finally got it. I've read it cover to cover and it did not disappoint. It is quintessentially Kellyanne, and if you enjoy her videos you will, I have no doubt about it, enjoy this book. So if we just take a second to appreciate this beautiful cover. So it's called Rebel Witch, Carve the Craft That's Yours Alone, and that is just Kellyanne. It's perfect, and I think it's something that's actually been sorely lacking within witchcraft books. So I think this really fills a void that much needed to be filled. So on the blurb of this book it says, "This is an invitation to become a witch on your own terms. What does being a witch mean to you? What do you want from your witchy path? How powerful could your practice be if it connected you to the things you love?" Rebel Witch does not seek to tell you what to do. Its aim is to spark inspiration and encourage you to create a truly authentic practice that reflects your unique experiences, tastes and personality. It's about trying things out, swerving the stuff that feels dusty and boring, and choosing only what makes your heart dance the witchy fandango. If you're at the beginning of your journey, Rebel Witch covers all the craft basics from casting spells and divination to energy and shadow work, offering tons of ideas as a launch pad for your own. And if you've been claiming the word witch for years, you'll find a myriad of ways of shaking things up. Whether you are reinventing the wheel of the year, choosing your favourite children's book as a sacred text, or constructing your own deity from the icons you admire, you get to build a practice that makes you feel fizzy, and that's a guarantee of potent results. Through history, witches have rebelled against society, so be brave, be bold, be inspired. Be empowered to do things your way. The book itself is split into 3 parts, and then it's got a little introduction and a teeny conclusion. I'll just read you a little bit from the introduction. It starts with why this book exists and how to use it. I'll read you a bit from the middle here. She says, "First, let me level with you. There's no shortage of books out there to give you the bare bones of a decent solitary witchcraft practice. In fact, there's a shit ton of them. These books help you to understand the common concepts, activities and tools utilised by witchy types to improve life and get desired results. Rebel Witch contains a lot of that same information too, but that's not why it was written. Instead, it's intended as a tool for sparking inspiration. It's an invitation to build a practice that looks, sounds and feels like your very own psyche. A practice that reflects your authentic experiences, memories and personality traits, so much so that it's undeniably your unique living tradition." And I think that just basically really, really nicely sums up the book. Then we get to the beginning. Now, I'll just hold this up to the camera. Absolutely beautiful. Now each chapter has one of these, well each part, there's 3 parts, and each part has one of these beautiful drawings and illustrations. It's kind of like a sigil or like an emblem, and a statement of power underneath it as well. So part 1's called Let's Begin. And she says, "Part 1 is designed to help you lay some foundations for your uniquely designed path. I'll introduce you to the concept of a rebel witch, welcoming you to celebrate the value of going your own way in witchcraft, while also inviting you to think about the challenges you may encounter. You'll have a chance to figure out how much you want to reveal your witchy world to others and what your true aims as a witch will be. Let's dive in." Part 1 is split up into 7 chapters. What does witch really mean? Why be a rebel witch? The challenges of being a rebel witch. Coming out of the broom closet. Questioning the consensus. Making it your own. And why witchcraft? Did I just count wrong then? I don't know, but it's 7. So my favourite part of this chapter, what I normally like to do, in case you don't know, in these little reviews, is I'll just go through each section of the book and give a general overview, maybe read a bit of the introduction, and then go more into depth about which part is my favourite out of that particular section. So that's what we're doing here. So my favourite in part 1, Let's Begin, is chapter 5, and that's questioning the consensus. So that's on page 28. And I just flicked straight to it. That was like the book. Magic flowing through this book, I tell you. I greatly enjoy the idea of questioning the consensus, as you may probably know if you watch my videos. So she says here, questioning the consensus isn't about pointless rebellion against accepted standards. It's about valuing your personal perspective and knowing how powerful that perspective is. If you agree with the consensus around a specific ingredient or activity, then by all means go with the flow. If you don't see an issue with the idea of lavender being associated with rest and peacefulness, for example, then perhaps you won't need to rock that particular boat. After all, lavender is widely known to encourage sleep and promote lowered blood pressure, so it makes sense. But let's say that you associate lavender with a particularly inspiring, empowered aunt of yours, who used to grow lots of it in her garden while you were young. In that case, you might see lavender as a plant that could conjure up her abilities of boldness and confidence, or help you connect with her spirit to have conversations with her. This is not wrong. It's an interpretation based on a weighty personal experience. That stuff counts. Overriding your life story and the many ways in which it has informed your outlook on things would only serve to dilute your magic and suck the sparkle from your personal witchcraft journey. Reading that, it's something that I believed anyway, but I never actually took it quite as seriously as I'm taking it now. And I am really starting to, through working through the exercises in this book, I am really starting to question things that I do and say, hang on, do I do that because I genuinely feel connected to it, or because I feel that I should do it? So I decided to put my tarot cards away for a month. I've not been using them for a while because I was getting a bit reliant on them, and I think you need to kind of check yourself with divination that you're not relying on it too much. So I put it away and I was like, no, I'll lay off it for a little while. I'm not really feeling it anyway. And then suddenly I just got this massive urge to to get it out and start using it. And I've been using it in a healthy and productive way. It's funny, really. So I know that tarot is something that I really connect with. But for example, there's certain Sabbats like Mabon, I just don't. I just really don't connect with it. I don't really see the relevance of it. It's important to question the things you do kind of as you go through life and cut out things that aren't important to you, don't resonate with you, and change up your approach to things. There's no time in life to just go along with what the general consensus is if it doesn't mean anything to you. So at the end of each little chapter, she has this section here, so called Write It and Try It. For this one, Write It says, write a statement of your commitment to question whether or not suggestions and information provided by others is right for you. Within the statement, include a section about why it's so useful and important to question the consensus and filter information through your own lens. And this is because you can read it and so easily forget about it. But I think doing journaling exercises, and I did it while I was reading it, I didn't do every single one, but I did a lot of them. And it really helps to cement the ideas in your head much more so than if you just read it. So I think it's an absolutely fantastic idea. And I love journaling. I can just write and write and write about all my complex inner emotions. They're not really complex. It's just waffle, but it's useful waffle, you know. And it just really helps to get it out of my head. Anyway, for Try It, she has, consider how your body and mind respond to any witchy information or suggestions that you absorb from books, websites, etc. Notice when you are feeling inspired, what happens to your body? What happens to your mind? Notice when you're feeling turned off, uninspired, or alienated by information you absorb. Again, what happens to the body and mind? This exercise will help you figure out what intuitively resonates with you, making it easier to use resources to inspire your own design rather than as rulebooks to be strictly followed. And I think, again, that speaks for itself. I think that's a fantastic way of putting the ideas into practice, because you might think, oh yeah, that's all well and good, but actually I've been doing such and such for so long that it's hard to tell whether it's a part of me or if I'm just going along with it. So having these things to actually do is just incredibly useful. Here we have part 2, Make It Happen. And this is just such a delicious part of the book. So here she says, in part 2, we're getting into the nuts and bolts of the witchcraft practice. We'll look at the different things you can consider including in your own path taking a tour of everything from spellcraft and ritual to magical books and divine beings. Along the way, I'll offer you lots of pointers on how to experiment, get creative, and incorporate all the twists, turns, and secret colours of your once and only perspective into your own practice. So in part 2, Make It Happen, we have chapters 8 to 16. Your witchy calendar, divine and other non-physical beings, spiritual hygiene, cleansing energy and creating sacred space, tools, altars, spellcraft, rituals and other witchy activities, divination and cosmic guidance, and keeping records. Which is, that's like such like juicy kind of stuff. I really love this section, and this is kind of the section where she, in the introduction, she talked about how she does include quite a lot of like Witchcraft 101 things, like cleansing space and different types of spellcraft, different rituals and holidays and things, but she really puts a Kellyanne spin on it and informs you how to turn these things into something that's uniquely yours, which I think is really, really important, because I think we all get a lot of guilt when we don't do certain things we feel we should do. So, like, for example, I was saying about the holidays, if I don't acknowledge one, I might feel guilty about it. And I think a lot of people are the same. They think, oh shit, I missed the full moon. And it's like, if you didn't need to do anything this full moon, it doesn't matter. Like, just, I think we all need to give ourselves a break and focus on what actually matters. If you love the moon and the full moon and you really want to connect to that energy every single month and you want to follow the moon cycles, she has a section in here about scheduling. In part 2 then, my favourite part of this part is chapter 8, and that is called Your Witchy Calendar. So it's the first section of this. But I particularly love the Days of Awareness section, which is on page 68. This is called Days of Awareness, including made-up ones. There are plenty of national and international days of awareness to recognise, many of which are linked to specific organisations and movements that raise money for important causes. You can insert the initiatives you care about into your witchy calendar so you remember to take action on those days. You could perform a fizzy, high-vibe healing ritual for a cause you're passionate about, spread awareness on social media, make a donation, or give your time to volunteer. As a rebel witch, you might just get the urge to sprinkle some totally random days into your calendar. They can be days dedicated to all kinds of things. Here are a few ideas. A day to honour your favourite band, favourite film, TV series, artist or a style of art, an activism day, a declutter and cleanse day, and so on and so on. So I thought this was just absolute genius, and I think it's amazing. And me and my fiance, we are both obsessed with Lord of the Rings, so we thought on Tolkien's birthday we can have a Tolkien day and watch all of the Lord of the Rings films and do other Tolkien-esque pursuits. I just think that's just such an epic thing to do, and to actually have it in the calendar and to do it yearly, I think it's incredible, and I love the idea of making that a holiday, and a holiday of spiritual significance as well. You know, we might bake some lambus bread and leave it to Tolkien as an offering. I just think it's ace. So the write it prompt for this is: make a list of the causes and issues that really matter to you, the problems that keep you awake at night, the shitty bits that really bother you most about reality. Then find out if there are days of awareness for those issues and which organisations support those causes. You could then choose at least one day of awareness for your witchy calendar. And then, what could be the pros and cons of having some random events of your choosing in your witchy calendar? So I did this, and there are a hell of a lot of causes and issues that keep me up at night. I've been an activist really passionately long before I was a witch. So this section resonated with me so much for that reason as well. I think having a formalised day or month, or, you know, to definitely make sure that you do something to contribute something worthwhile is a really amazing idea as well. And I think it's an important part of witchcraft, actually, to take responsibility for the world. You know, not to just live in your own little bubble and think, oh, things are fine with me, I can just mess around with some herbs and have a great time. You can, but caring about the wider world will give your craft a much richer and much deeper meaning. And the try it is when you've logged at least one day of awareness in your calendar, close your eyes and begin to generate the feeling of empowerment and positivity that comes when you know you've done something useful for a good cause. Let that feeling fill your body and change your perception of your day, your place in the world, and what is possible in the future. And there are a couple more as well, but I won't read everything out. And yeah, I just think that is a wonderful thing to be talking about and a really important thing to be talking about. So we're actually on the final section now, which seems to have gone rather quickly, doesn't it? So this is part 3. Let's keep growing. Part 3 is about preparing you to start carving out your own rebel witch path. In part 2, you had a chance to decide on the kinds of things you'll include in your practice. Now you can look at how to weave those things together in your life, creating a schedule for your witchy activities, figuring out your level of flexibility, and also learning to recognise when it's time for change. We'll also troubleshoot issues such as cultural appropriation, toxic comparison, and spiritual slumps. Incredibly important. So for part 3, we have chapters 17 to 22, and we have schedules and plans, ethics, shadow work, hefty section on shadow work, of course, because it's Kellyanne, seeking help and solving your problems, troubleshooting and connecting with others. And then finally, the kind of conclusion sort of thing is go forth and rebel. And then some further reading and an index. So in part 3, let's keep growing. My favourite section is the troubleshooting section right at the end. This is a section that includes things that often don't get talked about. She gives advice for what to do when things don't work or they feel underwhelming. Advice for when you don't believe in your powers or in magic. And mystical magpie syndrome, which I definitely have. I think particularly the first 2, when things don't work or not believing in your powers or magic in general, that is something that I feel like doesn't get talked about. We're told a lot to always believe in yourself, believe in your own personal power, blah, blah, blah. But it's not always as easy as that. We're brought up just believing, most of us, that magic isn't real. And to kind of come away from that is really, really difficult. I mean, Kelly uses magic with a K in this, but there's a clear distinction between this kind of magic and fairy tale magic, for example. So I think making that distinction helps a lot. But she gives loads of really solid advice on how to deal with these emotions that I think has been lacking greatly in the witchy spiritual community. So I am incredibly thankful to Kellyanne for this. Yeah, she's got loads. She's got spiritual slumps, inspiration versus imitation, criticism and concern from loved ones, resisting change. So for Write It, she has take a look at the issues discussed above and choose one you've already encountered. Write down the advice you'd give to a witch who's encountering this problem now. How could you help or guide them? And what worked for you? And then for Try It, whereabouts do you need to do some troubleshooting now in your practice? Detect an issue that you're having and consciously try to improve it for 2 to 4 weeks, checking in with your progress regularly. So, yeah, I just think that this troubleshooting section is really important because it's all well and good knowing the theory, but actually, when you come to do it, you're going to hit roadblocks and, we all do, even the most experienced witchy folks hit roadblocks, and I think it's very good to know that it's a common thing. And it's like reading this, it's like, oh, even Kellyanne Maddox has these issues that I have, and it just makes me feel a lot better about myself. Do you like my cup? I don't. I got it years ago when I basically first started on the path. I mean, it's kind of cute. I have a very big kind of connection with it and a soft spot for it, but Brian calls it my Mosher cup. It's like the most Mosher cup I've ever seen. Leave Wolfie alone. After the third and final part, we have Go Forth and Rebel. And this is just a really sweet little kind of, after the fact pep talk, which I just love. Just really telling you to be sovereign to yourself. I wanted this book to act as a fizzy little permission slip. Nothing more, nothing less. It's just so lovely, so lovely. And then we have quite a lot of further reading here and an index. So the further readings split up into beginner witchcraft, history lessons, chaos magic, contemporary witchcraft, tarot and shadow work. And that's very Kellyanne as well. That is Rebel Witch. And I just think she's absolutely knocked it out of the park on this one. I was looking forward to it, but it exceeded my expectations, like beyond all measure. And it is also much more detailed than I actually expected it to be as well. I did not expect it to go into this much detail or to be as like chunky and just well thought out, well planned, easy to follow, completely not overwhelming, and just ace. And also it just feels nice because it's a nice hardback and the paper is really good quality as well. And I read it in about 3 days. Yeah. And you know, I've been at work and things as well. It wasn't solid 3 days. And that was including doing the journal exercises. So yeah, I highly recommend it if you're feeling a little stagnant in your practice, because I've not done anything for ages. And in the past few days, I have done so many potent spells and little ritually things, and I've just got that spark and that love of the craft back, which is perfect. And I absolutely love that throughout this book, as you read it, you can just hear Kellyanne saying all these things. You know, it's got her little pet names like Chickpea and Pop-Tart in it. Lovely, delightful overuse of the word fizzy, which I absolutely love. I just think this is a real brilliant book. And I shall leave a few links down below where you can buy it. And I'll link to Kellyanne in case you've been living under a rock as well. I don't know how you'd find me if you hadn't found her, but anyway, yeah. It will come as no surprise that I recommend this book to anyone. As it says on the blurb, it is perfect for beginners and more experienced witches that are looking to shake things up. I do think it filled a huge gap in the witchy market for books as well. Just when you thought that every book that could have been written has been written, Kellyanne brings out this.